city sidewalks bustled with hurried footsteps, briefcases, and the smell of roasted peanuts from the corner cart. In the middle of this chaos sat a man who looked like he belonged nowhere, his clothes torn, his hair tangled, his beard grown, wild. Most people passed him with practiced indifference, their eyes sliding away as if he were invisible. But for 17-year-old Alana, a black girl walking home from her part-time job at a sandwich shop, invisibility was something she understood too well. She noticed him huddled against the cold bricks, his eyes dull yet strangely sharp, watching the world ignore him. Without thinking twice, she opened her backpack, pulled out the extra sandwich she had made for herself, and crouched beside him. "Here," she said softly. "You look like you need this more than I do." The man looked at her in surprise, his hands trembling as he accepted the food. For a moment his eyes glistened with something unspoken. Gratitude, yes, but also recognition. "Thank you, child," he murmured. Alana smiled, patted his arm gently, and walked away, unaware that the man she had just fed was no ordinary beggar. He was a millionaire in disguise, testing the world that had built his fortune. That night, Alana didn't give the moment much thought. She returned home to her small apartment where her mother worked a double shift and her younger brother waited, with homework sprawled across the table. Life was routine, tight budgets, shared meals, and dreams bigger than their circumstances. She told her brother about the man she gave the sandwich to, laughing lightly at how surprised he looked. But as she drifted to sleep, she couldn't shake the image of his eyes, piercing, calculating, almost as if he had been studying her instead of the other way around. Across town, in a penthouse hidden behind tinted windows, the homeless man sat freshly showered, dressed in tailored silk pajamas, replaying the encounter in his mind. His name was Richard Hale, a self-made millionaire who had grown disillusioned with the greedy smiles and hollow promises of the wealthy. He disguised himself as homeless, not for amusement, but to test humanity's kindness. And in Alana, he had found something rare, genuine compassion without expectation. The next morning, he made a call that set events into motion, one that would change Alana's life forever. The following day, Alana was leaving for school when a sharp knock rattled the door. Her mother frowned, wiping flour from her hands, and opened it cautiously, only to freeze at the sight of two police officers standing stiffly, their badges gleaming. "Is this the home of Alana Brooks?" one officer asked. Alana's heart dropped into her stomach, fear coursing through her veins. Her mother's voice trembled. "What's this about? Has something happened?" The officers exchanged a glance before saying, "Your daughter needs to come with us. She's not in trouble, but there's someone who wants to speak with her." Neighbors peeked out from their doors, whispers spreading like wildfire. Alana's hand shook as she grabbed her backpack, her brother clinging to her arm in confusion. She had no idea what she had done to warrant a police visit. The ride in. The patrol car was silent, the city flashing past in fragments of glass and steel. Her mother wanted to follow, but was told firmly to wait at home. Panic swelled in Alana's chest, until the car stopped, not at a station, but in front of one of the tallest skyscrapers in the city. The officers guided her through the marble lobby where chandeliers sparkled like frozen rain, and businessmen in suits whispered in surprise at the sight of a teenager being escorted by police. Alana felt small, out of place, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. They took her up to the 40th floor, doors opening into an office so grand it looked like a palace. And there he was, the homeless man from yesterday, now clean-shaven, hair neatly combed, wearing a suit worth more than her entire apartment's furniture. He rose from behind a glass desk, his eyes warm with recognition. "You?" Alana gasped, her voice barely audible. The officer stepped back, and Richard Hale extended his hand with a smile. "Yesterday you gave me a sandwich," he said. "Today, I want to give you a future." Alana blinked, unable to process the transformation. Confusion tangled with fear, but beneath it all was awe. She had no idea that a single act of kindness had pulled her into the orbit of a man whose world was galaxies away from her own. Alana's knees wobbled as she sank into the leather chair across from Richard Hale. Her mind raced with questions. Why had the police come for her? Why was he dressed as a millionaire? And what did he mean about a future? Richard studied her quietly, for a moment before speaking. "I've spent months disguised as a homeless man," he explained, his voice calm but firm. "I wanted to see if compassion still existed in this city. Most people walked past me as if I were trash. But you stopped. You gave without expecting anything back. That tells me everything about your heart." Alana shifted uneasily, her voice trembling. "I didn't do anything special. It was just a sandwich." Richard leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "To you, maybe. But to me, it was proof that kindness still breathes in this world. And I don't let proof like that go to waste." He reached into his desk and slid a sealed envelope toward her. "This is for you and your family." Alana hesitated, staring at the envelope as if it were dangerous. Her hands shook as she slowly opened it, revealing a scholarship offer for one of the most prestigious universities in the country. Tuition fully paid. Tears welled in Alana's eyes, her chest tightening as reality crashed over her. This must be a mistake," she whispered. Richard shook his head gently. "No mistake. I want to invest in people who still carry humanity in their hearts. And I think you're one of them." The police officers, now relaxed, nodded in quiet approval, as if they too were witnesses to a miracle. Alana's thoughts spiraled, her mother working endless hours, her brother growing up without opportunities, her own dreams of becoming a doctor always slipping away because of money. Now, in a single moment, the path that had seemed impossible was opening wide before her. "Why me?" she asked again, her voice breaking. Richard smiled softly. "Because kindness chooses itself. You didn't know who I was, and you helped me anyway. That's rare. That's what the world needs." He stood and walked around the desk, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "But this isn't just charity. It's an invitation. I want you to consider working with me part-time. Learn from me, see my world, and prepare for yours." When Alana returned home that evening, her mother nearly fainted as she read the scholarship letter and the official documents confirming its legitimacy. Her brother jumped with excitement, wrapping his arms around her waist. Neighbors who had whispered earlier now crowded outside, buzzing with curiosity as they saw the official car drop her off. Some muttered jealously, others marveled, but Alana hardly heard them. Her heart was still reeling from the enormity of what had happened. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about the strange twist of fate. A simple sandwich had led to a doorway she never dreamed existed. But with opportunity came weight. What if she failed? What if people thought she didn't deserve it? What if Richard's generosity came with strings she couldn't see yet? The questions spun in her head until exhaustion dragged her into restless sleep. Yet beneath the doubt was a quiet flame, a determination that whispered, "Don't waste this chance." The following weeks were a blur of change. Alana balanced school with visiting Richard's office, where she shadowed his team of executives. At first, they dismissed her as a charity case, a girl plucked from the streets out of pity. But when she asked thoughtful questions, when she stayed late studying documents, when she spoke with humility yet courage, some of them began to soften. Richard watched closely, never interfering, allowing her to stumble and rise on her own. He believed growth wasn't in the gift, but in the struggle that followed. Alana found herself learning more in a week than she had in years, about business, leadership, and most importantly, about resilience. Yet whispers lingered, some calling her unworthy, others questioning Richard's motives. She ignored them, remembering the man she first saw on the sidewalk, hungry and invisible. That memory grounded her, reminding her that she wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here to honor kindness, both given and received. Then came the second shock. One morning, Alana arrived at Richard's office to find reporters swarming the lobby, cameras flashing, microphones thrust into faces, headlines blared across screens. Millionaire leaves fortune to teen benefactor. Richard had quietly rewritten his will, making Alana the beneficiary of a significant portion of his estate. The news exploded, stirring outrage, envy, and admiration all at once. Strangers accused her of manipulation. Social media trolls attacked her background, and even distant relatives she had never heard from suddenly reached out, demanding explanations. Alana felt crushed beneath the weight of attention. Her phone, buzzing endlessly with messages she didn't want to read. "Why would you do this?" she demanded of Richard later that day, tears streaming down her face. He looked at her calmly, his voice steady. "Because the world needs to see that wealth isn't just for bloodlines. It's for those who earn it with heart. And you, Alana, have more heart than anyone I've met in years." The story of the girl who gave a sandwich to a homeless man and ended up inheriting part of his fortune became legend. Documentaries were filmed, articles written, debates aired on television. Some painted her as an angel, others as a schemer. But those who truly knew her understood the truth. She had simply given what little she had, never expecting anything in return. Richard continued to mentor her, guiding her through the storms of fame and teaching her how to stay grounded amidst chaos. And Alana, though overwhelmed, never forgot the lesson that started it all. One act of kindness can ripple further than we ever imagine. As she stood years later on the stage of her graduation, scholarship sash across her shoulders, her mother and brother cheering from the front row, she spotted Richard in the crowd, smiling proudly. She thought back to that ordinary day, that simple sandwich, and whispered to herself, kindness was never small, it was everything. Fame came like a tidal wave, and Alana had no choice but to learn how to swim. Overnight, she went from being a quiet girl with secondhand clothes to being recognized on the street, her face splashed across news channels and magazine covers. Some classmates envied her, whispering that she was lucky. Others distanced themselves, uneasy with her sudden spotlight. Teachers treated her differently too, some with pride, others with suspicion, as though she no longer belonged in the world of ordinary students. At home, her mother tried to keep life normal, reminding Alana to do chores, to keep studying, to stay humble. But even her little brother noticed the changes. "You're famous now," he teased one evening, "but don't forget I still beat you at video games." Alana laughed, but inside she was torn. Fame felt heavy, like wearing a coat too big for her shoulders. And beneath the glitter of attention, she longed for the simplicity of that first moment, kneeling on the sidewalk, handing a sandwich to a man she thought was just hungry. Richard, on the other hand, seemed to thrive in the storm. He walked beside her at press conferences, shielding her from the harshest questions, yet never letting her hide completely. "The world will doubt you," he told her one evening as they rode in the back of his sleek car, the city glowing outside. "But doubt can be your greatest teacher. Use it to sharpen yourself." Alana listened, clutching her notebook where she scribbled his advice like sacred text. Yet doubt wasn't her only challenge. Opportunists began circling, organizations requesting donations, distant relatives begging for money, even supposed friends resurfacing to claim her time. It overwhelmed her, and one night she broke down in tears, telling Richard she couldn't handle it. He placed a hand over hers, his eyes firm but gentle. "Remember, wealth doesn't change who you are. It reveals who everyone else is." Those words stuck with her, guiding her as she slowly learned to navigate a world that suddenly wanted a piece of her. The first real test of that lesson came when a major news outlet invited Alana for a live interview. Sitting under blinding studio lights, she faced a host who smiled sweetly but asked cruelly sharp questions. "Do you think you deserve Mr. Hale's fortune? Don't you think it would have been better spent on experienced philanthropists? Aren't you just a symbol for his publicity stunt?" The audience murmured, some nodding, others frowning. For a moment, Alana's throat locked, her palms sweating as cameras zoomed in. But then she remembered Richard's words about doubt. She took a deep breath and answered, her voice calm but steady. "I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't know who he was. I gave because I saw someone hungry. If kindness is now considered a stunt, then maybe the problem isn't with me. but with the world that doubts kindness at all. The studio went silent. Then applause thundered. Not from everyone, but enough to drown out the skepticism. That clip spread across social media, and suddenly Alana wasn't just famous, she was respected. But respect came with new responsibilities. Richard began involving her in his charitable projects, letting her sit in on meetings with non-profit organizations, even giving her the floor to propose her own ideas. At first she was timid, but soon she found her voice. She suggested small programs, scholarships for underprivileged teens, food drives for struggling families, mentorship groups for single mothers. Her ideas weren't flashy, but they were real, rooted in the life she lived. Investors and philanthropists listened, surprised by her insight. Richard often sat back silently, letting her lead, his faint smile betraying his pride. The press began calling her the girl with a sandwich and a vision. Some mocked the title, but Alana embraced it. "If one sandwich started all this," she said at a charity gala, "then imagine what we could do with millions more." Her words drew standing ovations, and slowly people stopped seeing her as just a lucky girl and began seeing her as a force in her own right. Yet shadows lingered. Not everyone welcomed her rise. In hushed corners of business circles, critics whispered that Richard was losing his mind, that he was grooming an unqualified teenager to inherit his empire. Some accused Alana of manipulation, of using her background to play on Richard's emotions. The harshest voices came not from strangers, but from within Richard's own boardroom. Advisors who had worked with him for decades grew resentful, convinced their loyalty had been overshadowed by a girl who simply gave away a sandwich. "She doesn't belong here," one of them hissed after a heated meeting. "She's a child, not a leader." Alana overheard such whispers, each one cutting deep. She wanted to walk away, to retreat into her old life. But Richard wouldn't let her. "They're afraid," he told her firmly. "Afraid of change. Afraid of someone proving that compassion is more powerful than their greed. Let them fear. You keep moving forward." One evening, Richard invited Alana to his penthouse balcony overlooking the glittering city. The air was crisp, the stars faint against the skyline. "Do you know why I chose you?" he asked suddenly. Alana hesitated. "Because I gave you food?" Richard shook his head. "Because you saw me. Everyone else looked away, but you looked at me as a human being. That's rarer than diamonds, Alana, and that's what I want this empire to stand for." His words sank deep, but they also terrified her. "I'm just me," she whispered. "What if I'm not enough?" Richard placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then you'll learn. Leaders aren't born ready. They're forged in the fire of doubt and failure, and I'll be here until you're strong enough to stand without me." Alana nodded, tears stinging, her eyes realizing for the first time that Richard wasn't just giving her opportunities, he was preparing her for something much larger. But fate rarely allows peace for long. Months later, Richard collapsed during a board meeting, rushed to the hospital under flashing lights and frantic sirens. The world froze as news spread. The millionaire who lived disguised as a homeless man was critically ill. Reporters camped outside the hospital, cameras capturing every update. Alana sat by his bedside, holding his frail hand, her heart breaking as machines beeped steadily. He smiled weakly, whispering, "Don't be afraid, child. Whatever happens, you're ready." She shook her head, tears streaming, begging him not to leave her. But Richard only squeezed her hand gently. For the first time, Alana realized that the world might soon look to her, not as his protege, but as his successor. The thought terrified her, yet she couldn't let him see her fear. She leaned closer, whispering, "I'll carry your vision. I promise." His eyes glistened with pride as he drifted back into sleep.